They tried to make me go to rehab. I said no.
129 people die every day in this country from a drug overdose.
Why so serious?
Recovery can be fun.
Recover out loud. Break the stigma.
Host Holly and various guests discuss the important topics about addiction and recovery. They are not quote-unquote experts, but just real people telling real stories. Any or no addictions are welcome. Recovery Talk starts now.
Welcome to Recovery Talk. My name is Holly, and today we have our co-host here is Pete.
Hello, listeners. How are we doing today? Thanks for having me, Holly.
Thank you for coming. I'm so happy and excited that you're here and going to be a part of this. If you're new to Recovery Talk is a podcast that has started about 2 months ago, and it's just going to be discussing some different topics related to addiction and recovery. We'll always have another guest and do a daily meditation or reading and a joke of the day.
Joke of the day.
Joke of the day. Pete's excited for the joke of the day.
I don't know what it is yet, so I'm just thrilled to hear it.
That's the one thing I couldn't tell you.
Ooh, listeners, get ready.
You'll have to wait. So yeah, we're just excited to have Pete here and co-hosting. We've been friends for a few years. Pete is someone who is in long-term recovery. He's always willing to help out any addict and willing to give back, be of service. And basically someone who is always willing and down to have fun in recovery.
That's right.
And
that's what it's about.
That is what it's about. That's what our topic is about today, is about having fun in recovery. Something that being addiction for, a long time, something that we didn't know how to do. So being in recovery, it's so important to have fun and just learn how to relax and enjoy life. So yeah, we're super excited to have Pete to be a part of this. So Pete, if you just want to talk a little bit about your story, maybe some of your addiction and kind of where your addiction brought you and where you are today in recovery.
Awesome. I grew up 4 hours away in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Lived there for 20 years, and just like most people, when I was 15, 16 years old, I started drinking and smoking pot and all that good jazz. Or not good jazz, but
it is good jazz.
At that time it was good jazz, I thought. But things progressed pretty quickly, especially once I got out of high school. It was always an escape from reality. I was always kind of an awkward person who wanted to fit in, so I was able to relax, I thought, or be part of when I was using drugs. It progressed from alcohol and weed very quickly to cocaine and Oxycontin and all sorts of other things, and it just was such a downward spiral so quickly that I ended up getting in trouble, and I had a felony for dealing marijuana to support my addiction. And what I did is I thought, I could just leave my city that I was from, and that would kind of solve the problem. So I moved up to Green Bay and I started working, and I worked a lot, but nothing changed because the problem wasn't the drugs, the problem was me. I brought myself with, and I didn't use that much right away, but within a year or two, very shortly, I was full-blown addict again, or in addiction mode, I guess, using drugs constantly, and that brought me to some very, 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 very dark places. It brought me to, I used to use with people, and towards the end of my addiction, I would meet my drug dealer or get my drugs, and I would just go by myself, and I literally kind of lost my mind with the drugs that I was doing. I would isolate so much that, any conversation with any human being was hard. I actually had to have my parents buy cigarettes for me because I was the anxiety was so strong that when I would go to buy a pack of cigarettes at a gas station, I would almost have like a full-blown panic attack because the uppers and the drugs that I was doing at that time were very, very... It was a very rough time for me, so... that continued, and then I started to realize that there was a problem. I had a problem, and I was all... I was... not being able to sleep in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden I was watching some TV show and they had one of those commercials come on. Are you an addict? Do you feel depressed? Do you hate your life? Yes, Pete, yes. Do you hate your life? I'm like, whoa. So it really felt like they were speaking to me. I called the number, and On my 26th birthday, 2 days later, I was in rehab in Jacksonville, Florida, and that was my first introduction to anything about my disease, about how I was like I was, or that I was different than other people, and that I had a serious problem. So I was there for 45 days, and I learned a lot. But when I got out, I just started to do the same things over and over again, because I felt good again. I felt good. It was kind of like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. I'm, feeling all right. And then the same stuff started happening again and again. And it took me a little while after that to find long-term recovery. I was an IV heroin user as well, and it was a pretty dark time. Until I started to try to change my thinking and do something different. Drugs were always the easy way out for me because I didn't want to deal with life on life's terms or life in general. So if I used, I would just turn off the problems for a little bit, but every time I would wake up from my high, or I would come down, or whatever the situation may be, I would have all those problems right there. So I got into long-term recovery, and I started to make some changes. I started to meet some people that were so kind to me. I didn't have a real friend or any friends besides people I used drugs with for 6, 7, 8 years, because I was 28 at this time. And it was so long that it was just awkward for, at the beginning, even talking to people or having a conversation. And I realized, though, very quickly, though, when I was with people that were also had the same goal as I did, that it was something special, and I felt better, and I didn't need to use drugs to be okay with myself. So I got a taste of what life was like, and without it, because it'd been, at that time, 10 straight years of me using drugs on and off very heavily for 10 years, like I said. So I was able to find these people that also wanted the same goal I did, and my life slowly started to change, and I am so grateful for that, because the people I met were people like me. They had the same problems I did. It may not be the exact same thing, but they could relate in every situation. So I wasn't alone anymore, and that was something that I'd been alone for a very, very long time. So it was so refreshing to have people actually look me in the eye, because I couldn't look anybody in the eye for the longest time, and say it's okay, I understand. And my family was always there for me. I thank them so much for that, but they couldn't help me as much as they wanted to. They did everything they could, but they couldn't, because they couldn't relate. They weren't addicts like I was, so it was very hard for them to relate. So until I found people that had the same goals as I did, it never changed. So when it did change, I was just been very, very fortunate to meet these people and to get on this journey, because going from an awkward person that's full of anxiety ridden and all that stuff to someone who just generally loves to talk to people now and to help people and listen to others, it's truly amazing. Things that have helped me stay in long-term recovery is having fun. There's a lot of things that are fun that I do in long-term recovery. The people I hang out with, we get together, we go out to eat, and I always thought that I need drugs to have a good time, and that wasn't the case. That's far from it, because I have never laughed so much than I have in the last 2 years. I mean, just like gut-wrenching laughing, like tears in my eye laughing, and like I keep saying, there was a time when I didn't laugh, I didn't love, I didn't feel loved, I didn't know that I would ever have human connection again in any sort of form or way, and boy was I wrong. So it truly is a blessing. The things that I'm able to do today, I'm able to be a productive member of society and to just be somewhat of a normal person from the outside looking in. Not normal, but I mean, I've quote unquote normal person. So it's pretty refreshing. It's quite the great thing that I'm able to live life today, and I forget that so easily when I get in the hustle and bustle of life, that I just need to be grateful, because there was a time when I literally was contemplating suicide continuously. I would overdose, and I overdosed 3 times, and each time I was brought back to life, and each time I wanted to die. So it was kind of like every time I woke up from that, I was like, I almost dropped the quote-unquote F-bomb. But, yeah, it's crazy to think about because I don't think about this stuff constantly. So when I'm speaking and sharing now, it's crazy to think that I didn't want to live for a very long time. And today I can't imagine thinking like that. So,
yeah, and your story is just so incredible and so inspiring to listen to, hearing about even like the anxiety and stuff that you had. And I can relate to that too when I was in my addiction. Like, I didn't want to go around and be around people without using drugs or alcohol for someone that I didn't even like myself. And now I would need to be, quote unquote, likable or, I didn't even know what to talk about. I didn't even know what to talk about weather. Like, I don't know. Like,
hot one out today.
Yeah. I think I haven't been outside all day. I'm not sure what the weather's like. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing some of your story and talking about some of that dark past that even for me being in recovery that we can forget about, like how bad it was and
Yep, very easily.
Just gross.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Good term there.
Just yucky. And we forget about that just for having fun in recovery and doing all these things. It's like, yeah, we all have this really bad past and we can relate to it on some level. Obviously, everybody's story is different and go through different struggles, but there's something that we can have some common ground on. So, Pia, just have a few questions. What would you say is your biggest struggle in recovery?
My biggest struggle in recovery is not continuing to keep on doing the things I'm supposed to do on a daily basis, because for me it's a daily struggle. Sometimes to stay clean I have to be vigilant and I have to, talk to people, because when I talk to people I can get answers for my problems. I can, I'm not alone. I'm not thinking in my own head, stuck by myself. So isolation is probably the biggest struggle I do have, because I still tend to isolate sometimes. But thankfully and luckily I have people in my life, such as Holly and so many other great people that reach out to me, and if people don't see me for a short period of time or, whatever, they're able to reach out to me, and, then I realize what I've been missing, and I tend to not isolate after that. So that'd be my biggest struggle, is isolation, because it's something that I was so used to for so long that it still can be a struggle at times.
Wow. Part of me, when you were saying that, I was thinking for someone, when I think of you so outgoing and fun and full of energy
Yeah.
and around people all the time. So when you say you struggle with isolation, I wouldn't have never guessed. So, but I can relate to that too. What would you say is your biggest accomplishment from being in recovery?
My biggest accomplishment is being able to be there for other people and help others, and also be, good to my family again, because my family was there for me through all these dark times, and it was just I was self-centered for so long, and still can be, but not to that extreme. So it's just nice to be able to be a real human being and to have empathy and love for others, and give back to anyone who struggles. And it doesn't have to be just people that are addicts. I mean, anybody. It's just, I've noticed that at a gas station, if someone says have a great day, that can just change your day. So just having a positive attitude is something that I strive for, and I feel like is a great accomplishment the days that I can really think about that, and spread positive vibes out into this world, because there's a lot of bad, there's a lot of negative, and I don't have to be a source of that today. So it's very refreshing to not be a source of that, to spread all good and love into this world, because I think it's a ripple effect. I really do. If I'm kind to somebody, somebody else may be kind to somebody else, and it just keeps going from there. So it's good to remember that. So thank you for asking that question.
We need more people spreading good vibes and doing the next right thing. So let's see. Well, let me see if I can read my notes for one. What does recovery mean to you?
Recovery means life, and not only life, but a life worth living today. I'm not just existing. I'm not just waiting for the next high or to pass away. The recovery means living life today, and from the age of 18 to 28, roughly, there was no life to live. It was just a constant struggle to get high or be very miserable when I wasn't.